Before I jump into this, let me just say something the way an old man like me does. If you've been keeping me company through these stories, I'm glad you're here. Some stories, well, they aren't easy to tell, but they're easier when someone's listening. The day the doctor leaned in close and whispered those words, I swear the whole damn room shrank. Someone is poisoning you, Harry. Just like that. Soft, careful, like he was afraid the walls might hear it before I did. I remember the smell first. That sharp hospital antiseptic that always makes me feel like I'm standing somewhere between life and the waiting room nobody talks about. My hands were cold. Not from fear, not yet, but from the kind of tiredness that sits deep in your bones when you've been sick for too long without answers. He showed me the labs, numbers that didn't make sense. Toxins you don't just accidentally pick up. And he kept his voice low, the way a man does when he respects the truth, but fears the consequences. Harry, this isn't environmental. Someone is introducing this to your system. I left the clinic walking like I had glass under my feet. The air outside tasted metallic, almost sour. Strange thing is, when you hear something that big, the world doesn't go quiet. It gets loud. Cars honking, someone arguing across the parking lot, a baby crying. Everything just slams into your ears at once. And then my phone rang. My son's name on the screen. "Hey, Dad," he said too quickly. "How are you feeling today?" Now, you need to understand something. My boy never called like that. Not in that soft, measured tone. Not 3 times in a week. Not at the exact moment the doctor told me toxins were crawling through my blood like unwelcome tenants. I didn't answer his question. I just listened to his breathing. Shaky, hesitant, almost checking. "Dad, you there?" "I'm here," I said, just thinking. He swallowed so loudly I could hear it through the line. That was the moment. The exact second. The first crack opened in the floor beneath my feet. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear. Fear comes later, like a second storm after the first one's already ripped the roof off. No. What kept me awake was the quiet. The kind of quiet where a man starts replaying every moment he might have missed. Every clue he walked right past with his old, trusting eyes. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. Funny thing, when you're sick, you convince yourself the house is comforting. But sitting there in the dark, I noticed details I'd never truly seen. The faint chemical smell around the sink. The way my pill organizer was turned the wrong direction. The herbal supplements my son bought me, just to help with energy, sitting a little too close to the coffee canister. 3 times that week he'd asked me the same question. "How are you feeling today?" Not "how are you doing?" Not "need anything." Not even "thinking of you, Dad." Just that one line, like he was taking notes for someone. I finally stood, the chair leg scraping across the tile with a sound that felt too loud. I opened the cabinet where I kept my medication. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing ever does when someone knows what they're doing. But when I shook one of the supplement bottles he'd brought over, it didn't sound right. Too heavy, too clumpy. Like something that shouldn't be inside it was sticking to the sides. I don't know why, but I set the bottle down like it was alive. Around midnight, I heard a car slowing near my driveway. My house sits on a quiet street. That sound matters. I peeked through the blinds just in time to see a pair of headlights linger, then ease away. I didn't recognize the car, but I recognized the behavior. Someone checking. Someone watching to see if the house was dark. My throat tightened in a way no toxin could explain. I locked the door. The next morning, my son called again. Same question, same tone. "You sleeping okay, Dad? Any dizziness, nausea?" He was fishing. Not in a cruel way, not yet, but in the way a man fishes when he needs a certain answer. "I'm fine," I told him, which wasn't true. My chest felt heavy, my head a little foggy, but I wasn't about to hand him the information he wanted. Just tired. That's good," he said, but his voice didn't sound relieved. It sounded disappointed. That's when something in me snapped awake. After we hung up, I drove straight to the pharmacist, a woman named Claire who knew me well enough to notice when I wasn't myself. She smelled faintly of vanilla lotion and always tapped her fingers when she was thinking. I placed the supplement bottle on the counter and said, "Don't judge me for this, but I need to know if something's off here." She didn't ask why. She just opened it, gave it a careful sniff, then frowned. These aren't the tablets this brand uses. A coldness spread through my ribs. What are they? I asked. I don't know, she said quietly, but they're not what the label says. She pushed the bottle back toward me like it was trouble she wanted no part of. I walked out of that pharmacy with the same feeling I had the year my wife died. Something ending, something beginning, and neither one under my control. When I got home, my son was already there, standing on the porch, hands in his pockets, face tight, like he was the one who'd been kept awake all night. Dad, he said, we need to talk. And the worst part wasn't that he was there. The worst part was that he looked prepared. He didn't wait for an invitation. My son brushed past me with that stiff, nervous energy people get when they've rehearsed a conversation 20 times and still don't know how to start it. The smell of cold morning air clung to his jacket, mixing with the faint cinnamon scent my late wife used to love. Strange the things you notice when trust starts cracking. He stood in the middle of my living room like a man bracing for impact. Dad, sit down, please. There's a certain kind of please grown children use when they think they've become your guardian instead of your kid. Soft, controlled, patronizing without meaning to be. I stayed standing. What's going on? I asked. He rubbed his palms together, avoided my eyes, looked at the couch, the window, the carpet, everywhere but me. I've been worried about you, he said. You've been confused, forgetful. Is that right? Yes, he answered quickly, too quickly. And I think you need help making some decisions. There it was, not poison, not murder, something more subtle, more familiar. But I kept my face blank. And what decisions would those be? He took a breath. Your house, your finances, your care, Dad. It's getting too much for you to handle alone. My jaw clenched so hard I felt it in my temples. The doctor's whisper echoed in my ears. The pharmacist's frown. The mystery car idling outside my home. The supplements with the wrong contents. And now this. This conversation he'd cooked up like a dish he expected me to swallow whole. Is that why you've been calling me every day? I asked. To check my symptoms? His eyes flicked up just for half a second, and it was the first honest reaction I'd seen. Shock. Not that I knew, that he'd been caught. Dad, listen. No, I said, you listen. But he kept talking, like a man sprinting downhill with no way to stop. I've already spoken with a lawyer, not to take anything away from you, don't look at me like that, but to make sure your estate is protected. If something happened to you right now, the taxes alone... There it was. People always think the betrayal comes in the dramatic moments, the gasping confessions, the slammed doors. But betrayal doesn't start at a shout. It starts at a whisper, tucked inside excuses that sound responsible, even loving. Show me, I said. He blinked. What? Show me the paperwork. I didn't bring it. Then get it. His mouth tightened. Dad, you're being unreasonable. And you're hiding something. He took a step forward, lowering his voice. I'm trying to protect you. The breath that left my chest wasn't fear. It was disappointment. Heavy. Years old. Like I'd already been carrying this moment without knowing it. I turned my back on him and walked to the kitchen. My cup from the night before still sat in the sink, the faint smell of stale coffee rising from it. I picked up the supplement bottle from the counter and dropped it onto the table between us. What's this? He didn't even look at it at first. That was mistake number one. I told you, he said, they're natural, just vitamins. You changed them. Now he looked at me, really looked. Something flickered across his face. Fear, irritation, calculation. I couldn't tell which. I didn't. Don't lie to me. His throat bobbed. They weren't working, so I bought a different brand and used the old bottle. People do that all the time. Which brand? He opened his mouth. Closed it. That was mistake number two. I stepped closer. I could smell the faint, sharp cologne he always wore to seem more put together than he felt. The same scent he used to spray on before job interviews, before parent-teacher meetings, before facing anything that scared him. And now it smelled like guilt. You came here last night, didn't you? I asked quietly. What? No, of course not. Someone did. He swallowed again, too hard, too loud. Dad, you're not well. That's why you're imagining things. I have footage. That stopped him cold. His shoulders stiffened. His lips parted. He didn't ask what footage. He didn't ask when. He didn't ask to see it. A man who's innocent asks questions. A man who's guilty freezes. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. There it was. Not anger, not denial, surrender. "I want the truth," I said. For a moment, I thought he'd give it. His face softened, his eyes grew glassy, and his whole body sagged like a man carrying years of exhaustion. But then he shook his head, wiped his face, and put the mask back on. "You're sick, Dad, and I'm trying to help you before someone else takes advantage." That line, that polished lawyer-approved line, he'd practiced it, probably in the mirror. I walked past him, opened the front door, and said, "Get out." His eyes widened. "What? No. Dad, you're not thinking straight." "Get out," I repeated. He hesitated. Then he grabbed his jacket, anger tightening his jaw. "You're going to regret pushing me away." "Funny," I said. "I was thinking the same about you." He stood there for a long second, breathing hard, eyes burning with something I couldn't name. Then he left, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The house went quiet again. I locked the door behind him. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Something was happening. Something bigger than supplements or paperwork or protecting my estate. The doctor's whisper echoed again in my mind. "Someone is poisoning you, Harry." And for the first time, I didn't think he meant it metaphorically. The next morning, I woke up with that metallic taste in my mouth again, the one the doctor said wasn't from any illness he recognized. A taste like old pennies melting on my tongue. It scared me more than I wanted to admit, because fear gets heavier when you know it has a name. I walked into the kitchen, opened the blinds, and let the early light spill across the counter. Dust floated through the air like tiny drifting flecks of doubt. I glanced at the supplements again. The bottle sat exactly where I'd left it, innocent as a stone. It's strange how betrayal doesn't come with a warning label. It comes in plastic jars and careful words. I needed answers, and answers don't fall out of the sky. They come from work, quiet, stubborn work. So I decided to start with the one place my son didn't know I'd been updating. The tiny camera I'd hidden in the doorframe after a break-in 2 years ago. A camera he thought I'd removed when the insurance paperwork was finished. I retrieved the footage, my hands trembling a little. Not from age, from awareness. Awareness that whatever I saw might break something in me I couldn't put back together. The screen lit up, and I fast-forwarded through hours of nothing. The house silent, the neighborhood still. And then, headlights, slow, deliberate, parking not in the driveway or in front of my house, but a house away, just out of view from a casual glance. A figure stepped out. It was him, my son. He walked up the path with that careful, quiet urgency a man uses when he knows he shouldn't be somewhere. He didn't knock, didn't call out. He pulled something from his jacket, a small key I'd never given him. He let himself in. My throat tightened so sharply I had to sit down. Watching your child sneak into your home is a kind of death, not of the body, but of certainty. Inside the footage, he headed straight to the kitchen, straight to the shelf where my medicines sat. He opened the supplement bottle, and his hands shook, not with guilt, with fear, a fear I didn't understand. He poured something in, shook it lightly, then placed the bottle back exactly where he'd found it. Then he stopped, put his hands on the counter, breathed out shakily, and whispered, barely audible on the mic, "I'm sorry, Dad." Then he left. I replayed that last part 10 times. 20, trying to hear the tone. Was it regret, shame, desperation? It didn't sound like hatred. It sounded like a man cornered by something bigger than him. But desperation doesn't excuse danger, and fear doesn't excuse poison. I needed to know what he'd put in that bottle. I didn't trust the local pharmacy lab, not after the pharmacist's uneasy reaction. I wanted someone who knew how to handle messes like mine. I called an old friend from my factory days, Doug, a man with a garage full of machines that had no business being in a garage. "Harry," he said, "haven't heard from you in ages. What's wrong?" "Need a substance tested quietly." He didn't ask for details. Real friends don't. They hear the strain in your voice and skip the small talk. "Bring it by in an hour." His garage smelled like motor oil and burnt metal, familiar in a way that almost settled my heart. He took the bottle, shook some tablets out, crushed one, ran it under a small analyzer that hummed like a tired refrigerator. When the results popped up, his eyebrows shot up. "This isn't poison," he said slowly. "Not the way you're thinking." "What is it then?" "It's a sedative, low dose, the kind used to calm nerves or, well, to make someone more compliant." "Compliant," I repeated, the words scraping down my throat like gravel. Doug nodded. "Mixed with your heart medication? It could make you dizzy, confuse your head, make you forget things. Hell, it could make you seem incompetent." "Incompetent?" My son's words came rushing back. "You've been confused, forgetful. You need help making decisions." He hadn't been trying to kill me. He'd been trying to weaken me. To build a case for control, a case for taking over my decisions, my estate, my house. Doug must have seen something in my face because he put a hand on my shoulder. "Harry, you okay?" "No," I said, because lying to yourself is how you get blindsided in the first place. "But I will be." On the drive home, the world looked different, too sharp, too bright. The trees looked like they were leaning in to listen. My heart punched at my ribs hard enough to remind me it was still mine. When I turned onto my street, I saw him again. My son, sitting on the porch steps, shoulders slumped, elbows on his knees, like a man waiting to confess. The air felt thicker as I approached, carrying the smell of wet leaves and old memories. He stood when he saw me, eyes red around the edges, no anger, no rehearsed tone, just exhaustion. "Dad," he said softly, "how can we talk?" "Inside or out here?" I asked. "Out here," he said quickly. "Feels safer." Safer. That word told me everything. We stood a few feet apart, like two strangers trying to negotiate a ceasefire. He exhaled, long and shaky. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did." His eyes dropped. "I know." "Why?" I asked. "And don't give me a speech about protecting me." He rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture he used to do as a kid when he'd gotten caught lying about homework. "I was scared," he finally said. "After Mom died and the market crashed, and you lost that pension lawsuit, I thought you were one bad fall away from losing everything. And if you did, it'd all fall on me. The bills, your house, your medical stuff. I'm not ready for that, Dad. I can barely take care of my own life. So you decided to take control of mine." "It wasn't like that," he snapped, then winced at his own tone. I needed you to slow down, to trust me, to let me help before things got worse. I read online that certain supplements can make you calmer, more open to guidance." "Guidance," I repeated. "That what you call it?" His voice cracked. "I didn't know they'd react with your medication. I swear to God I didn't." The part that hurt the most was that I believed him. Because my son wasn't a villain, just a man drowning in fear, grabbing onto me like a life raft he didn't realize he was pulling under. But intention doesn't erase impact. I sat down beside him on the porch step, looking at the quiet street, at the neighbors' houses lined up like silent witnesses. "You could have asked me," I said. "I didn't think you'd say yes." "You're right." We sat there a long time. Two grown men with the same last name but completely different understandings of what love means. Finally, he whispered, "I'm sorry." I let the apology sit in the air, heavy and unfinished. "I know," I said. "But forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow, painful walk. And I hadn't even stood up yet. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in my living room with every light on, listening to the refrigerator hum like it was breathing. Every shadow felt like it had hands. Every creak in the walls sounded like someone leaning close enough to whisper my name. After everything I'd uncovered, the pills, the bank transfers, the forged medical files, I thought I was ready to face my son. I thought fury would steady me. But when the sun came up and I heard his footsteps on my porch, my heart felt like it dropped into ice water. He used his old key, the one I never took back. He walked inside like it was still his home. "Dad," he called softly, like he'd just woken from a dream. "You up?" I didn't answer. I stood in the kitchen, leaning on the counter just to stay upright. He turned the corner, saw me, and froze. His eyes flicked instantly to the table where everything was spread out. The pill bottles, the test results, the bank screenshots I'd printed and highlighted, even the envelope I'd taken from his car. He went pale. I didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't demand an explanation. I just said his name, Ethan, and the sound of it felt like a final verdict. He swallowed hard. Dad, let me explain. There's nothing left to explain, I said. I know what you've been doing. His throat tightened. For a second, the truth flashed in his eyes. Guilt, panic, calculation. Then he tried to slip back into the tone he used when he was a boy caught breaking something. Dad, you're misreading all of this. You always jump to worst-case scenarios. Just let me talk. You tried to kill me. The words came out steady, surprising even me. They landed between us like a dropped weapon. His jaw clenched. A muscle twitched near his eye, and just like that, the mask fell away. He exhaled slowly. Fine, he said. You want the truth? He gestured around the room. This house is bleeding money. Your medical bills, the repairs, everything falling apart. I was trying to fix things, for both of us. By poisoning me. That was never the plan, he snapped. I just needed you, slowed down, more compliant. I needed you to stop arguing about the sale. You never listened, Dad. Never. Not when it matters. I listened to you your entire life, I whispered. I trusted you with everything. He looked at me with something like pity, or maybe disgust. You're old. You don't see things clearly anymore. You think you're still the same man you were at 40. But you're slipping, Dad. You forget things. You get confused. I was trying to help you transition before everything collapsed. By taking my home? By securing our future, he corrected. Mine and my family's. You had your life, it's my turn. He said it calmly, coldly, like he was discussing a business deal. Not my son, not anymore. I had placed a small recorder on the counter before he arrived. He hadn't noticed it, not until I glanced at it. His eyes followed mine. His face drained. What is that? The truth, I said. Insurance. He lunged for it instantly, too fast for someone who came in pretending to care. I stepped back, but he was still stronger. He grabbed the recorder, smashed it on the floor, kicking the pieces away. You don't get to ruin me, he hissed. Not after everything I've already invested. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I didn't see the boy I raised. I saw a man who had rehearsed every lie, every manipulation, every step. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the second recorder. His mouth fell open. I knew you'd break the first one, I said calmly. You always destroy what you can't control. He stared at me like I'd stabbed him. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I walked past him and opened the front door. Get out. His breathing turned frantic. Dad, please, you don't want to do this. I do. If you give them that recording, he whispered, you'll ruin my life. You tried to end mine. He flinched like I'd hit him. For a moment, one fragile moment, his eyes softened. Not with love, with fear. Real, animal fear. Dad, don't, he begged. I can fix this. I just need time. I stepped aside. Get out of my house. He hesitated. The slightest chance lingered that he would say he was sorry, that something in him still cared. But instead, he lowered his gaze, tightened his jaw, and walked out. Not slowly, not regretfully, with resentment in every step. When the door shut, the silence felt heavier than any scream. I stood there for a long time, gripping the recorder until my hand shook. I looked around my home, a place filled with his childhood photos, his drawings, the gifts he'd made me on Father's Days long past. The weight of betrayal settled in my bones so deeply it felt almost physical. I didn't call the police that morning. Instead, I drove to my doctor's office. I handed him the pills, the transfers, the evidence, the recording, everything. He listened to it twice. When the second playback ended, he looked at me with gentle, exhausted eyes. Harry, I'm sorry. This is criminal. We'll contact the authorities. You're not alone in this. But walking out of that office, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. Back home, I locked the door. I tossed every cup, every container, every medication he'd tampered with. I sat at the table with a cup of untouched tea, staring at the front door, expecting him to return, to rage, to plead, to finish what he'd started. He never came back. The police arrested him 2 days later, and even though justice was served, even though the truth was finally out. There are nights when I still wake up gasping, certain I hear his voice outside my door. "Dad, how are you feeling?"